Every lie, there is a truth that always comes to light.
Let there not be anything said in the darkness that I will not shout from the rooftops and the mountaintops and the light.
But you want to know something else, though? Admitting those is a whole nother story. I know it's not easy, but that's what sets us free.
I have been on a roller coaster with this case, right? I have been up and down, one side, the other side, seeing things from both sides, trying to figure out who's telling the truth. Is Michael lying? Is Natalia lying? Or maybe they are both victims of the same monster.
I didn't do anything wrong. I know I didn't do anything wrong. I have a jury that has affirmed I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not hiding. I'm not criminal. I'm not ashamed.
There's something, Michael, that's a very serious accusation about you. I think it's our obligation to show you this.
I'm not gonna listen to it. I'll hit play. I'll hold it up and show it to you. So, it truly doesn't affect me what Christine tells random people in the public about me.
Christine told me in a series of messages Natalia ruined her life in so many ways. Christine basically said that Natalia started her husband. She had either caught Natalia having sex with her husband.
Say what?
Or became aware of it. And then apparently Natalia also
Are you
tried
serious?
one of the neighbors' husbands or one of the neighbors.
Wait.
I specifically remember Christine just telling me how heartbroken she was over the situation with Natalia sleeping with her husband.
No! Are you crazy? That is a total lie.
So to simply say it on camera, absolutely not. I have never at all touched Natalia in an inappropriate way. I have never had any kind of sexual relations with Natalia. Unequivocally, absolutely, 100%, hell no. At the same time, that's Christine. She will make up whatever crazy loud lie she can. And if you don't believe her, then she'll take it up a notch.
Michael really wants some resolution in his one-on-one with Natalia. But he also wants her to believe and understand that he was victimized by Christine, too. Natalia wants answers, and she wants justice.
The Barnetts think that it's over, but it's not. It is far from over.
And maybe they both still need to come clean, because maybe everybody is hiding something.
If the truth does set us free, and we have told as much truth as we can, have we not? Hopefully me showing up here should let you know I harbor no ill will for anything. I'm not trying to hide from anything.
You have no idea how the stuff that went down. Did you know that she pepper sprayed me?
I learned that about a year ago.
Do you know?
Jacob told me.
Do you know how many times she did it?
Jacob told me once. Granted, Jacob wasn't going to be around every second of the day.
It was twice.
I can remember her getting a can of the pepper spray, and I remember her having it on her keys.
The first time she did it was just to show me what it was going to be like. I remember she took me to the back porch. She told me to keep my eyes open. And the first time I closed them right as she was spraying, and she got mad. It was like, you need to keep your eyes open.
You know, it's just too bad nobody ever got to show her. Because, you know, if you have to know what it's going to be like, doesn't she need to know what it's going to be like?
After she did it, she wouldn't even let me clean my eyes for like 5 minutes. I remember crying. She wouldn't help me. The second time she did it, it was actually at Jacob's school. All because I was walking too slow.
I don't know nothing about statutes of limitations or anything, but that sounds like
Did you know that she pepper sprayed me?
I learned that about a year ago.
Wait a second. The pepper spray? Okay, no. He didn't just learn about it. He told us in 2022 in an interview that Christine told him about it at the time.
Natalia wasn't telling her who she was. So Christine told me one day I came home from work that she tried something new. We had a pink canister of pepper spray that was on Christine's keys. Tell me who you are, or I'm gonna spray you in the face with this.
No, I don't think he just learned about it because he told us he knew about it in 2022.
Christine's telling me this happily and proudly like it's no big deal. Michael, I even tried pepper spraying her today. She still won't admit the truth.
Michael needs to admit to Natalia that he knew about it. You can't tell her you just learned about it when you told us and it's recorded. Just admit it.
It hurt. You know, the fact that she just did it, like, just to do it that first time was, and I didn't want her to do it. Like, I told her I don't want to do it. And she did it the first time, and I closed my eyes before it got in my eyes, and she told me to Christine told me to keep my eyes open. It hurt so much, and the fact that she didn't care was the worst part of it.
Looking back and talking to Natalia and reflecting and asking her if anything had happened in the Barnett home, physical abuse, she didn't say anything. What Natalia's saying in this video clip, I'd never heard that before. She never said anything. And knowing what I know with my experience in interviewing children and working with families over the years, it doesn't surprise me that she didn't say anything. There's some trauma there. What they did, that's not love. Not even close. That's hate.
What are the things that Christine made up?
So many things.
What did she make up about me?
You were gonna kill everybody. You were gonna kill her, you were gonna kill the boys. And again, I don't wanna talk, I don't wanna go down this road.
Christine is the one that told me to tell them that I wanted to hurt you guys, that I wanted to poison Christine, that I wanted to that I was hiding knives. What is that story even?
What story? Hiding knives?
Yeah. I was never alone. What is that story about?
I would come home from work. There was a couple of times during a period of time that Christine said she found knives under your bed. There was one time that I found a knife under your bed, and there was one time you were holding a knife in our bedroom. That's what that's about.
I was never in y'all's room with a knife.
I remember you being in there.
I couldn't even look at over y'all's bed. I barely even climb over it.
I understand that. That doesn't change the fact that you were in the room holding a knife that direction.
Michael, I remember the knives were always put up where I couldn't even reach them. I would have had to drag a chair. Y'all would have heard me. And I was never alone. Christine was always there, so how could I have got him?
I don't know. There was a night you were standing, not at the very foot of the bed, but like 6, 7, 8 feet back, holding a medium-sized knife. And there was one time I found one under your bed. Now, were there things going on that was making it really hard for you to keep things straight? Maybe, but I remember that.
I couldn't even reach that fridge, even with a chair. So how could I have got them?
I don't know how. I know what I saw.
I was never alone. Christine was always there.
And yet, I remember seeing that. Okay, we don't have to focus on that.
I don't know what the truth is, but at the beginning of this face-off between Natalia and Michael, you look at her body language, right? I mean, she's like not happy. It's like, okay, what do you got? But Michael sounds pretty truthful.
I know what I saw.
Michael seems really credible. And then Natalia starts to relax her posture. So if you're reading her body language, one has to wonder, does Natalia remember everything back in those days?
And I think like a while after I was fully adopted, I like that.
Tell me about that.
Like, I started like with the hiding knives thing, and
What was happening with the knife?
well, I hid one underneath the fridge. Another place I forget.
Was Natalia a dangerous person? Did she or didn't she hold a knife at the end of their bed? And why did so many other people report that Natalia was violent and acted out sexually? It is one of those unanswered questions in this case.
Every family she's been with has given the identical story of her behavior. And that story is Natalia harmed one of our family members. There's a pattern here, and the Barnetts experienced this pattern. That raises questions.
After hearing about the way Natalia was treated inside the Barnett home, all the beatings, it sheds a different light on these allegations that Natalia was hoarding knives and putting them under her bed, if she ever was, because maybe she had these knives for self-defense. And also, there is another explanation for Natalia's behavior. In 2010, Natalia was diagnosed with reactive attachment disorder. And that's a diagnosis that apparently is kind of common with orphans, maybe international orphans too. Reactive attachment disorder is a rare condition that prevents children from bonding with their family members. And the number one cause is trauma.
I think that Natalia did have her trauma, because who wouldn't? I think that the Barnetts were pushing her daily to do things that were probably making her very, very uncomfortable. I think she was in pain, chronic pain, miserable, and if she was acting out, whether it be a knife, whether it be whatever, she was a child who was disabled, who needed help.
Says that I was diagnosed with psychosis, bipolar, schizophrenia, attachment disorder, and mood disorder. You can ask my parents. Never once have I showed any signs of bipolar, and my parents have seen bipolar before. Like, they've seen a whole lot of mental illnesses, so they know. And they will let you know that I've never showed anything like that. The reactive attachment disorder, I can say there probably was a little bit before.
Something's not right, and I'm gonna figure out what it is.
The only thing I had was reactive attachment disorder, which is understandable. I've seen so many people that didn't want me. So of course, I'm gonna be scared to get attached to you. But I'm also scared to get attached to you because of what you're doing. Why would I want to get attached to you? If anything, I want to get as far away from you as possible. But I couldn't do that because I was a kid. And I do remember having some behavior issues when I first met my parents.
When Natalia first got with us, there would be moments that she would just be so broken and just feel like, how do I deal with this, you know?
What's up? Yeah. What's up, people?
Natalia been with us all these years, and let me tell you, we have corrected Natalia, and she's never came at us with the knife or put thumbtacks up on our stairs or tried to hurt our children.
I was lying all the time, stealing all the time. I cussed. I probably did say some sexual stuff that I should not have. They probably remember more than I do. I'm sorry, Mom and Dad. I'm sorry. Because I didn't know. I was really little, being exposed to so much stuff that I didn't know was bad. But I don't like to think about it in my past. It still hurts.
Natalia's been asked about her memories of Ukraine. And we know that survivors of trauma often block memories as a coping mechanism.
She had these traumatic events in her past, and her childhood was so difficult and so many sporadic traumas. It doesn't surprise me that Natalia was acting out.
I've always tried to remember certain things. I don't know what happened to me while I was in the Ukraine. That is one big part of the puzzle that has still got a lot of holes in it.
All right. So you were in Ukraine, and has anybody ever told you how long you were in the orphanage?
No, but I was there when it was winter, and
So you think you were only there for a year?
yeah, but I'm not sure.
The time I was in the Ukraine in the orphanage, there's a lot of fuzziness with it. One thing I do remember, though, I remember it might have been like a foster family or like a mom. Like, I remember being there for, honestly, I don't even know how long. Like, I just remember waking up and it was totally different. I don't know how I got there. I don't know what happened. And I don't remember how I came to the United States. Like, that whole thing is just blank.
There's still a lot of mystery that surrounds Natalia's adoption in Ukraine. The records that were lost in a sewer incident at the hospital that we're aware of where she was born.
The judge that handled the adoption proceeding was terminated for corruption a month or so after Natalia was adopted. And that the file, the records of Natalia's adoption were missing. Did she ever see that birth certificate before?
Нет. Я не видела этого свидетельства о рождении.
То есть вопрос такой, ты когда-нибудь писала Наталье или навещали ее?
Не. Я не знала просто она где она.
She didn't know about her whereabouts. They only told her she was relocated to the United States, and she doesn't know what happened to her after this.
Would I be surprised that Natalia was handed off to different people for nefarious reasons? Maybe, trafficked. I wouldn't be surprised by anything.
Do you know which parts of your body people aren't supposed to touch? Private areas? Yeah. You know where your private areas are? Okay.
There are a lot of real sickos out there. Talk about diabolical. They exist.
Body parts, people touching body parts. Have you ever had anything like that happen? Tell me about that.
It was actually when I was still in Ukraine, when I was with that guy.
Which guy?
The one that put the thing over my face.
Our social worker taught us a child that comes from an orphanage that was abandoned as a baby is gonna have some trauma. If Natalia is now your daughter and she's been diagnosed with reactive attachment disorder, you have to accept that. You have to be prepared.
Natalia's been through a lot, And so how we coped with it was lots of family love. Like, we would all get together and we would pray together to show her that she is a good person and she is able to be loved.
Your therapist believed that reactive attachment kids needed to be boot camped, that you needed to be treated like you're in the military. He shared a couple words with Christine, and she took them and ran with them. She loved the idea of boot camp, and suddenly everything was a privilege or a consequence. I had privileges and consequences. Abusers want you to feel like not only you're the only one, but they want you to feel like you can't tell anyone. I am thankful you and I are alive today. Oh my God.
She tried everything to try to make me into a monster.
She did the exact same to me. November 2013, we had just moved to Canada, and she and I had probably the fight to end all fights. We're in a car. There's me, there's her. Wesley and Ethan are in the back seat. Instant screaming, blood-curdling, top of lungs. Everything's mine, nothing's yours. These people are mine. The things are mine, the children are mine, the money's mine, friends are mine, you have nothing. And she's just going on and on and on, and she keeps saying, my success, my money, my Hollywood. And she keeps going, she keeps going, and she keeps going. And I had enough. And both hands on the wheel. I shouldn't have said what I said. I regret saying what I said. I told her, shut up or I'll kill you. So she keeps yelling, 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 gets her phone out, secretly hits record, and then stops screaming. So now the only person screaming is who? You. Me. And what am I saying? Shut up or I'll kill you. So she records that, and while it's happening, she turns to the boys. Boys, Dad's gonna kill you both, but Mommy's gonna protect you. I'll save you. He's gonna kill everyone. I'll save you. So she records it. I can't tell you how many times she has played that back to them. It's a lot. She played that back to them over and over and over, allegedly, so they would be afraid of their dad. All I wanted to do was get away from her. They spent the next 9 months, all three boys, staying up all night at the window of the farm in the middle of nowhere, Canada, with knives, waiting for their dad to come home. Because she had convinced them, he's gonna come back and get you. He's going to come back and kill you. You've gotta tell the judge in our divorce that you've gotta come with Mom because Dad's gonna kill you. The boys relayed to me that she would pull up on the computer every story of every father that ever killed their child. And she convinced them I was gonna do it to them. Suddenly, they're terrified.
They do think that there is ground that the boys are not potentially safe based off of you have domestic violence in your past, and who knows what you're gonna do. The boys are scared. Just stay in the U.S.
And she takes them to a battered women's therapist in the middle of nowhere and tells the battered women's therapist, I'm a monster. I'm gonna kill everybody. Please save me. She gets me to agree that whatever the therapist thinks is best for the kids, I'll do. Next thing I know, what the therapist thinks is best for the kids is they should never talk to their dad. I didn't see my sons. She took them. I don't have my sons. January 15th, 2014 is the last time I saw them. I've seen Jacob, and he and I have worked on things and tried to repair some things, but I missed everything. I missed the rest of him growing up. I missed things like his first date, his first dance. I've missed everything. I haven't seen Wesley and Ethan. My sons are gone.
I can tell he's struggling. I feel like part of it is guilt. The things that Michael has done, that Christina's done, they were not right. It should have never happened in the first place.
I think there's always time for redemption. It's never too late to do the right thing. But if you need to give a full confession of what you've done.
Michael and Natalia both want some kind of closure. This was an important confrontation, face-off, meeting, whatever. Michael is still making excuses instead of taking responsibility himself for some of the abuse. And time is running out.
I've had nightmares about this stuff. I want it to stop. And I want a full apology.
Did you ever think how it would affect me?
You remember your cross that's got your middle name Grace on it that you used to have?
Yeah.
I have like 6 things left from my old life. That's one of them. It's hanging up on the wall in my living room. So yes, I think about it, and I think about it all the time. The cross with your name on it is positioned in a spot in my living room where I have to see it. I've never tried to forget Natalia in general. Natalia deserves to not be forgotten. Yes, I think of it. And I beat myself up over it all the time for not being stronger. I could have easily killed myself 10 times in the last year alone.
Mentioning Ethan, Wesley, and Ethan, it's hard. I feel bad for them. And God, the things that they had to go through. I feel bad that Wesley and Ethan are still there.
They're gonna be gone forever. I need a miracle. I need a miracle. And I just want everyone to find some peace and not be so terrified of what she'll do next.
Are you sorry? Are you sorry about what she did to me?
I'm overly sorry about what she did to you. I am horrified by what she has done to you. I am sorry I wasn't stronger and didn't stop her. I wasn't. I just wasn't. I don't think I'm strong enough now to do it. But I'm doing it anyway. Because the truth deserves to be told complete, not a little snippet. Here's everything. I'm so sorry.
Michael, I forgive you.
You don't have to. I don't forgive me.
You should.
I wish I could. I just couldn't. I just couldn't.
Michael. Michael.
I should have stopped her.
Michael, look at me. I forgive you. Can I pray for you? Please? Thank you for protecting him. Thank you for giving him a second chance. Thank you for saving him from the pills that he took. Thank you, Lord Jesus, for what you've done, Lord Jesus, because you know that you have a plan for him. I just pray, Lord Jesus, that you would just touch his heart. Please. I just pray that you give him a new mindset, give him a new heart. That he can be stronger from this. I pray that he can be better than I is. God, I just pray that you would just help him, Lord Jesus. Please just help him. Please. In Jesus' name.
Thank you. This is how we get free.
I just want you to know something, though. It was not easy to forgive you. It wasn't.
That is a really powerful scene. I mean, I think the tears are real. I think this is what each side was hoping for, forgiveness and an apology. But one of the unresolved issues is that Natalia wants to know why she was re-aged. It's still so painful for her, but it's the one area that Michael says is completely off limits. So, did Natalia really forgive him? Or is it a ruse to get information for a possible civil suit and trial down the road?
This was hard. But I'm willing to do it. Because everybody deserves a second chance. Everybody deserves a time to admit their faults and be forgiven.
I appreciate that. I hope you have nothing but a happy existence, and it seems like you have that.
I am okay.
I'm glad you're okay.
Ever since I met my parents, they let me have the childhood that I needed. They're the ones that got me through the things that I went through. And I pray that your life gets easier too.
Do this. We gotta get this.
I can't bend. I can't bend my
No, but we can do this. Watch this. You're gonna so that, and then we're in here, and then we're there, and I'll snap it out for you.
Thanks. At first, I was very upset with him, and, it was just very hard to be able to forgive Michael. And honestly, I wish I could have been able to talk to him more about the re-aging. But at the end of the day, he apologized. Everybody deserves peace in their life.
It's extremely nice to know that there is no mental daggers coming from her side to me. Forgiveness is good. Forgiveness wipes it all away.
It's my adoption day, and I'm so excited. It's been a long time coming. This is my adoption board. Let's do a countdown. Right? 0 days. It's official. It has been a really long journey. I have always wondered if I would ever be able to find someone that would actually love me. But then I met my parents, and it's been different ever since. It's been a good different. This is the day that I closed the door on the Barnetts and never opened it again. I was the girl who came from Ukraine, and a lot of stuff happened that I wish didn't. But I just want people to remember me as someone who was able to overcome what they went through. I was able to still move on and just grow.
All right, up the ramp we go.
It's adoption.
It's adoption time.
You ready to make this official?
I've been ready to make this official.
Are you sure you want to do this? Because you're stuck with us.
Yes.
You know what? Y'all stuck with me, so...
We appreciate that.
Yes.
I love y'all so much.
Let's go do this, baby.
Let's do this.
Come on.
Let me get the door. I got it.
Oh my gosh. I'm about to be adopted. Oh my gosh.
This is a matter of the adoption of Natalia Grace Barnett. Natalia, can you raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You may be seated.
Trusting is not easy, especially when you've been hurt. But being adopted it's an awesome thing. It really is, especially when you find that perfect family.
You understand adoption is supposed to be forever.
Yes.
Okay, do you wish that this adoption be forever as you sit here in court today?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so there's a discrepancy in your legal age and your biological age. Can you explain that to me?
The adopted family that I was before, they changed my age. They was trying to claim that I was an adult, even though I wasn't.
Okay, so legally you are 33 years of age.
Yes.
Okay, so you're born in Ukraine, and what date does that show that you were born?
September 4th, 2003.
Okay, so either way, you're an adult. You're either 19 years old or some other number.
Yes.
Okay, you may sit down. The court will find that Natalia Grace Barnett consents to the adoption in open court today, and that the petition should be granted, that the adult's name should be changed to Natalia Grace Renee Manns, and that the petitioners Antoine Corey Manns and Cynthia Mary Renee Manns from this day forward shall be known as her parents.
I love you.
Finally being adopted to my family who has loved me and gone through every roadblock and every stepping stone and never gave up on me is the greatest feeling in the world to me.
Oh my gosh, I love you.
That's literally like the happiest moment of my entire life.
I am the mommy. I am the mommy.
I have the adoption decree right here. It's official.
My life, ever since I was really little, I feel like got written out for me. It's like a crazy, curious story of just like many twists and turns, and I had no control over that.
So you told me some things that were not true.
I had to learn a lot of life lessons at an early age. But I will forever embrace my past because I feel like it made me stronger. I just want to stay focused on now because I have a lot of big plans for my life. I'm gonna get my age changed back to the way it's supposed to be. Go to school, get my high school diploma. This is a new chapter in the story with just endless possibilities. Book 2 is about to be written by me. And that book is going to be an amazing book. I already know.
Something ain't right with Natalia. This girl is tweaking. I feel like she's an enemy in the house. If she laid to us, we have held her hostage. Made us look like we're the enemy.
Natalia stabbing her family in the back over a complete lie.
She's done other things too. But this was a new low. Natalia does not have emotions for nothing but herself. We're done. Yes. We're done with her.
It begins with a silence that feels wrong. A silence that stretches too long for a Sunday morning in Washington. No traffic hum. No doors slamming. No radios murmuring behind drawn curtains. Just a house standing still, as if it has decided to hold its breath. The phone keeps ringing inside. No one answers. By the time the front door is forced open, the air inside is cold, stale, untouched. Coffee in the mug has long gone bitter. A calendar on the wall is still open to March, the date circled in red, underlined twice, a reminder that never got the chance to matter. Shoes sit neatly by the entrance. A jacket hangs on the back of a chair. Nothing looks disturbed. Nothing looks broken. Nothing screams violence. And yet, something is profoundly, unmistakably wrong. Because the woman who lived here is gone. Her name will be printed in bold type within hours. Her photograph will run on the evening news before nightfall. And before the week is over, her disappearance will carve itself into the memory of an entire state, becoming one of those stories people lower their voices to talk about, one of those cases that never quite leaves, no matter how many years pass. Washington, 1990. A city wrapped in rain, concrete, and routine. A place where people vanish into crowds every day, but not like this. She did not pack a bag. She did not withdraw money. She did not tell a friend, a coworker, a neighbor. She simply stopped existing between one ordinary moment and the next. Investigators will later say the timeline is razor thin. Somewhere between Friday evening and early Saturday morning, she disappears. No witnesses. No screams. No broken windows. No signs of a struggle. The kind of vanishing that makes seasoned detectives uneasy because it suggests planning, precision, and a confidence that borders on arrogance. The first officers on scene walk slowly, methodically. They open drawers. They check closets. They stand in doorways longer than necessary, scanning for something they cannot quite name. The house feels staged, like a snapshot frozen just before disaster. Her purse is on the counter. Wallet inside. Credit cards untouched. Cash still folded neatly. Her car remains parked outside, dust already beginning to collect on the windshield. Missing person cases usually begin with hope. This one begins with dread. Neighbors offer fragments. She was quiet. She kept to herself. She waved when passing, smiled politely, never stayed long. A creature of habit. Left for work at the same time every morning. Returned home before sunset. Jogged on weekends. Bought groceries on Thursdays. Predictable. Traceable. Safe. Until she wasn't. Police canvass the area. They knock on doors. They ask about unfamiliar vehicles, strange noises, anything out of place. Most answers are the same. No, nothing unusual. Just another rainy night. A few recall hearing a car engine late. One remembers footsteps on gravel. Another swears they saw a shadow near the house, but cannot say when, cannot say who. Fragments without shape. Clues without weight. By Monday, the story breaks wide. Newspapers run the headline, "Woman missing under mysterious circumstances." Television anchors repeat her name with practiced gravity. Her face stares out from grainy photographs, frozen in a moment of normalcy that now feels unbearable. The public watches. The public waits. And the questions begin piling up. Why leave behind everything? Why no note? Why no trace? Detectives dig into her life with surgical intensity. Employment records. Phone logs. Bank statements. Everything is clean. Too clean. No debts. No enemies. No history of violence. Friends describe her as cautious, thoughtful, private. Not the type to disappear on impulse. Not the type to trust easily. Not the type to walk into danger unaware. Which means, if danger came, it likely wore a familiar face. The investigation tightens its focus. Interviews stretch longer. Alibis are checked, then checked again. Every man she worked with, every acquaintance, every casual connection is pulled into the orbit of suspicion. Tension creeps into the community. People begin locking doors earlier. Streetlights feel dimmer. Familiar faces feel less safe. And then, the first strange detail surfaces. A call placed from her phone after the estimated time of disappearance. Short. Silent. Disconnected before a word is spoken. The number it dialed belongs to no one she knows. Investigators replay it again and again, listening to the emptiness on the line, searching for breath, movement, anything. They hear nothing. But the call exists. Logged. Timestamped. Unavoidable. A mistake? A message? Or a deliberate act meant to mislead? Days pass. Then weeks. Search teams comb wooded areas, riverbanks, abandoned structures. Helicopters cut slow circles through gray skies. Volunteers walk shoulder to shoulder, eyes scanning the ground, hoping and fearing in equal measure. Each day ends the same way. No body, no evidence, no answers. Hope begins to thin. The case file grows heavier. Pages multiply. Photographs. Maps. Timelines drawn and redrawn. Red string creeps across bulletin boards. Nothing connects. Everything contradicts. And then, just as quietly as it began, momentum fades. New cases demand attention. New crimes flood the precinct. The missing woman becomes a name mentioned less often, then only in hushed tones, then only in past tense. Leads dry up. Tips stop coming. The community moves on, or pretends to. But the case never closes. It sinks instead into that uncomfortable space between memory and neglect. A cold case. A wound left open. A question without an answer. Years will pass. Seasons will change. Detectives will retire. The house will be sold. Renovated. Lived in by people who never knew what happened there. Children will play in the yard where officers once stood, radios crackling, eyes searching. And somewhere, in boxes stacked high in evidence storage, her name will wait. Waiting for someone to look again. Waiting for something missed. Waiting for the silence to finally speak. Because whatever happened in Washington in 1990 did not end that night. It only began. The first year after her disappearance is defined by noise. Phones ringing. Press conferences. Sirens cutting through wet streets. Detectives speaking into microphones with careful words and tighter jaws. Every rumor becomes a headline. Every whisper becomes a possibility. The city does not sleep easily anymore because somewhere inside Washington, a line has been crossed and no one knows exactly where. Inside the precinct, her file is no longer thin. It sprawls across desks, bleeds into late nights, fills coffee-stained notebooks with timelines that refuse to behave. Investigators replay her final days frame by frame, hour by hour, dissecting moments that once meant nothing and now carry unbearable weight. A grocery receipt. A casual conversation at work. A jog witnessed by a stranger who cannot remember her face clearly enough to be useful. They reconstruct Friday evening like a crime scene that no longer exists. She leaves work on time, seen by a coworker in the parking lot. She smiles, waves, says something forgettable. She stops at a convenience store. The clerk remembers her because she paid with exact change. A small detail, but it sticks. After that, the timeline fractures. No confirmed sightings. No camera footage. No reliable witnesses. Washington in 1990 is a city caught between eras. Surveillance cameras are rare, grainy, unreliable. Cell phones are luxury items. Digital footprints barely exist. People vanish more easily then, slipping through gaps technology has not yet learned to close. And whoever took advantage of that knows it. Detectives shift strategy. If the scene offers nothing, they will dig into people. They start with the obvious. Former relationships. Old tensions. Anyone who ever raised their voice at her, anyone who ever lingered too long after a conversation. Ex-partners are brought in, questioned under harsh fluorescent lights. Alibis are checked. Stories compared. Most crumble under pressure, revealing nothing more sinister than discomfort and resentment. One man stands out, not because of what he says, but because of what he doesn't. His answers are short, polite, too controlled. He claims he hasn't seen her in months. Says they drifted apart naturally. No conflict. No drama. Detectives note the calm, the lack of emotion. They write it down. They circle his name. But calm is not evidence, and suspicion without proof goes nowhere. The phone call resurfaces again and again. That silent call placed after she vanished becomes the most unsettling artifact in the case. Analysts debate its meaning. Some believe she placed it herself, interrupted before she could speak. Others argue it was staged, a way to confuse the timeline. The number leads nowhere. A prepaid line, purchased with cash, used only twice before going dead forever. A ghost calling into the void. Weeks turn into months. Posters peel off walls. Candlelight vigils grow smaller. Her family stands before cameras, begging, pleading, holding on to hope with white-knuckled desperation. They insist she would never leave voluntarily. They know her routines. They know her fears. They know her heart. And they know something terrible has happened. Police want a body. Not out of cruelty, but because bodies talk. They leave marks. They tell stories. Without one, every theory remains fragile. Every accusation collapses under scrutiny. Searches expand beyond the city. Forests, rivers. Construction sites. Abandoned warehouses. Dogs track scents that fade into nothing. Each failed search erodes confidence. Inside the department, frustration sharpens. Some detectives begin to suspect an inside job, not within the police, but within her life. Someone close. Someone patient. Someone who knew exactly when to strike and how to vanish afterward. That kind of crime leaves almost nothing behind, and what it leaves is buried deep. By the second year, the case cools. Officially, it remains open. Unofficially, resources shift elsewhere. New crimes demand attention. New victims need justice. Her name is no longer mentioned at morning briefings. Her file is moved from desk to cabinet, from cabinet to storage. But it never disappears completely. Every few months, a tip comes in. A woman seen in another state. A waitress who looks just like her. A patient admitted under a different name. Each lead sparks a flicker of hope, then dies under verification. False sightings become their own cruel ritual, reopening wounds just long enough to remind everyone how deep they go. Years pass. Washington changes. Neighborhoods gentrify. Old buildings come down. New ones rise. People forget the fear, forget the headlines, forget the nights when they double-checked their locks. But some things refuse to fade. Her case becomes one of those stories veterans tell rookies late at night, a cautionary tale about what happens when nothing makes sense. Cold case. 2 words that carry weight. They mean unanswered questions. They mean families waiting. They mean files that gather dust while time erases everything else. And yet, somewhere within that dust, something waits. A detail overlooked. A statement misunderstood. A connection dismissed because it did not fit the narrative at the time. Because cases like this do not stay buried forever. They wait. Waiting for the right eyes. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting for time itself to become the key. And time, relentless and unforgiving, is just beginning its work. Time does not heal this case. It erodes it. By the mid-90s, the disappearance has become background noise, a faded headline buried beneath newer tragedies, louder scandals, fresher blood. Inside police headquarters, her name is spoken rarely, usually by accident, usually followed by a pause that lasts just a little too long. Younger officers recognize it vaguely. Older ones recognize it instantly and wish they didn't. The file sits in storage now, sealed inside a cardboard box labeled in black marker. Inside, transcripts yellowing at the edges, photographs curling with age, cassette tapes that no one remembers how to play anymore. Evidence preserved carefully, faithfully, but without urgency. Cold cases do not scream. They whisper. And yet, the whispers never fully stop. Every few years, a detective pulls the box down again. Sometimes it's assigned. Sometimes it's curiosity. Sometimes it's guilt. They open it like a wound that never quite closed, flipping through pages that once felt alive and now feel heavy. They read the same statements. They trace the same timelines. And every time, the same question rises, unanswerable and persistent. How does someone vanish without leaving a single crack in the world behind them? The theory that dominates during these years is simple, almost comforting in its cruelty. Stranger abduction. Wrong place. Wrong time. A crime of opportunity executed with terrifying efficiency. It explains the lack of motive, the absence of evidence, the silence that followed. It allows everyone to believe there was nothing she could have done differently. But comfort is not truth. Because buried deep in the file is a detail that never quite fits that narrative. A note scribbled in the margin of an early interview. A coworker's offhand remark, recorded and dismissed in the same breath. She had mentioned feeling watched. Not threatened. Not scared enough to call police. Just a vague sense, the kind people shrug off, the kind that only feels important in hindsight. Investigators at the time mark it as anxiety. Stress. Imagination. They move on. Years later, someone underlines it. The coworker is re-interviewed nearly a decade after the disappearance. Older now. Slower. More careful with words. She repeats the comment, then adds something new. The woman had joked about it, laughed it off, but she had changed her routine slightly afterward. Took different streets. Varied her jogging times. Small adjustments that mean nothing unless you know what to look for. That revelation sends a ripple through the cold case unit. If she sensed someone watching, then this was not random. It was patient. Intentional. Someone learning her habits, adapting as she adapted, staying just far enough back to remain invisible. A predator who knew the rhythm of her life. The focus shifts again. Old suspects are revisited. Names once cleared are circled again, not because of new evidence, but because time changes people. Alibis that once seemed solid weaken as memories fade. Stories shift. Dates blur. What was once certain becomes negotiable. One name resurfaces more than the others. The quiet man. The one with the calm answers. The one detectives never quite believed, but never had enough to challenge. He has moved since then. Changed jobs. Changed addresses. Built a life that appears unremarkable. No criminal record. No obvious red flags. Just another man who aged out of suspicion by surviving long enough. When questioned again, he cooperates. Smiles politely. Expresses sadness. Repeats his story with only minor variations, the kind that could be attributed to time. Detectives notice the differences anyway. A shift in wording. A pause where there was none before. Small cracks that might mean nothing or might mean everything. Still, nothing holds. Technology, however, does not stand still. By the late 90s, forensic science has begun to change the rules. DNA is no longer experimental. It is powerful. It is precise. It has already rewritten the endings of other stories once thought unsolvable. Investigators look again at what little physical evidence exists. Fibers. Hair fragments. Smudges once deemed unusable. Most of it leads nowhere. Until it doesn't. A single sample, collected from her car during the initial search, had been preserved almost as an afterthought. At the time, it was useless. Too small. Too degraded. Now, it becomes something else. Analysts work it carefully, patiently, extracting what they can. The result is incomplete, but it is something the case has not had in years. A profile. Not enough to identify someone. Enough to exclude many. The quiet man is asked to provide a sample. He refuses. Politely. Legally. Within his rights. Investigators cannot force him. But refusal is its own kind of answer, and it reignites a fire long thought extinguished. The case stirs again. Detectives begin to suspect what they did not want to believe in 1990. That the crime was intimate. Close. Executed by someone who knew her routines, her vulnerabilities, her sense of safety. Someone who could enter her world without raising alarms and leave it without leaving footprints. Someone who had time. Still, without a body, without witnesses, without a confession, the case remains frozen. Suspicion hardens into frustration. Years stretch longer. Evidence ages. People die. Memories disappear. The woman remains missing. And the city carries on. Until, decades later, something unexpected happens. A routine review. A new database. A connection no one saw coming. Because sometimes, it is not a single clue that solves a cold case. It is time itself, rearranging the past until the truth can no longer hide. The break does not arrive with sirens or headlines. It arrives quietly, buried inside a routine process no one expects to matter. A technician sits in front of a screen late one evening, scrolling through a database that did not exist when the woman disappeared. Millions of entries. Names, numbers, fragments of people reduced to code. The system is designed to compare the incomplete with the unknown, to look for patterns where none should exist. Most nights, it finds nothing. This night is different. A partial match flickers into view. Not a hit. Not confirmation. Just a statistical anomaly strong enough to demand attention. The kind of thing that would have been impossible 10 years earlier. The kind of thing that makes a tired professional sit up straight and look again. The profile recovered from the woman's car does not belong to the quiet man. That door closes. But it does not vanish into the void either. It brushes up against another entry, one connected to a minor arrest in another state years later. A man stopped for something forgettable. Disorderly conduct. Trespassing. Nothing violent. Nothing that would have raised alarms. A routine arrest that ended with a DNA sample taken, logged, and forgotten. Until now. The name means nothing at first. It is not on any list. Not in any report. Not circled in red ink on any board. He was never questioned. Never considered. Never even a blip on the radar. In 1990, he lived just far enough outside her immediate circle to remain invisible. But invisibility, detectives know, is not innocence. They dig. The man's history is thin but telling. Short-term jobs. Frequent moves. No fixed routine. The kind of life that leaves little behind. He had been in Washington in 1990. That much is clear. Employed briefly by a contractor who worked near her neighborhood. Close enough to observe. Close enough to learn. Close enough to wait. Investigators rebuild the timeline with him in mind, and suddenly, small details shift. The shadow a neighbor mentioned near the house. The unfamiliar footsteps on gravel. The late-night engine sound that never belonged to anyone nearby. Details once dismissed now align with frightening precision. The phone call takes on new meaning. The prepaid line could have been his. Purchased anonymously. Used sparingly. Discarded easily. A tool, not a lifeline. They track him down decades later. He is older now. Grayer. Slower. Living under a different version of his name. When detectives knock on his door, he does not slam it shut. He does not run. He invites them in. That, more than anything, unsettles them. He answers questions willingly. Too willingly. He remembers Washington vaguely. Says he barely knew the area. Claims he never heard of the woman. His voice is calm. His eyes steady. The same unsettling composure detectives have learned to fear. They ask for a DNA sample. He hesitates. Just a fraction of a second. Just long enough. Legally, they now have grounds. The partial match. The proximity. The opportunity. The hesitation. A warrant is obtained. The sample is collected. Sent to the lab. Waiting begins again. Days stretch painfully. This is not the frantic waiting of 1990. This is heavier. Older. Weighted with the knowledge that this may be the last chance. If this fails, the case may sink for good. When the results arrive, they do not scream. They do not celebrate. They confirm. The DNA is not a full match, but it is strong enough to place him inside her car. Strong enough to prove contact. Strong enough to collapse the story he has lived inside for decades. Confronted with the evidence, he does not confess. He adjusts. He shifts his narrative. Says he met her once. Says she offered him a ride. Says nothing happened. Says he left her alive. Each sentence is carefully chosen. Each word designed to explain just enough without opening the door to the truth. But lies age poorly. Investigators press harder. They show him photographs. They read him statements. They play silence like a weapon. They let him talk himself into corners he no longer recognizes. His composure begins to fray. The calm cracks around the edges. Anger flashes. Then fear. And then, something unexpected happens. He asks a question. Not about charges. Not about lawyers. Not about prison. He asks whether they found her. The room goes still. That question does not belong to an innocent man. Detectives do not answer. They let the silence expand, heavy and suffocating. He looks away. His shoulders slump. Decades of distance collapse into the space between breaths. For the first time since 1990, the truth is close enough to feel. But he still does not confess. Without a body, prosecutors hesitate. DNA places him in her car, not at a murder. Defense attorneys will tear that apart. They need more. Something solid. Something undeniable. So investigators return to the past one more time. They re-examine property records. Old construction sites. Places connected to him that no one thought to search because no one knew to look. They follow paper trails long ignored. A storage unit rented briefly, then abandoned. A parcel of land sold under pressure years later. A well kept hastily and forgotten. And then, in a quiet patch of land far from the city, they find something that stops them cold. A disturbance in the soil. Subtle. Old. Almost invisible. Excavation begins slowly, respectfully. Each layer peeled back like history itself. The earth gives up its secret reluctantly, but it gives it up. Bones. Not all of them. Not neatly arranged. But enough. Enough to speak. Enough to tell a story no one has heard in 30 years. The woman did not vanish. She was taken. She was silenced. She was hidden. The community will not learn this yet. Not tonight. Not this way. For now, the truth belongs only to those standing over the ground, breathing air that feels heavier than it should, realizing that the silence that began this story was never empty. It was full. Full of waiting. Full of fear. Full of a truth that refused to stay buried forever. And the case, once cold, is burning again. The ground does not give up its secrets easily. Even after the first bones surface, the earth resists, clinging to what it has hidden for so long. Forensic teams work in silence, hands steady, movements precise. This is no longer a search. This is a recovery. Every fragment is photographed, measured, bagged, treated with a reverence that feels almost ceremonial. Word travels fast inside law enforcement, slow outside it. Radios crackle with coded language. Doors close. Curtains are drawn. The case that once gathered dust is now handled like glass, because one wrong move could shatter everything. The remains tell a story before any lab result arrives. The position, the depth, the isolation of the site. This was not panic. This was intention. Whoever brought her here knew the land, knew it would not be disturbed, knew time would do the rest. No shallow grave. No hurried cover-up. This was someone confident enough to believe they would never be found. Confidence born from years of silence. When the forensic report comes back, it confirms what everyone already feels in their bones. The remains are hers. The missing woman from Washington, gone since 1990, now reduced to evidence and answers too late to save her. Cause of death is difficult to determine after so long, but trauma is present. Enough to erase any remaining doubt. She did not leave. She was never meant to return. The suspect is brought in again. This time, the tone is different. This time, there is weight behind every question. They show him the site. They show him the photographs. They do not accuse. They let the facts speak, because facts are louder than anger. He stares longer than necessary. His breathing changes. Decades of practiced control slip, just slightly, just enough. He knows now. The thing he believed buried forever has surfaced, and with it, the future he thought he escaped. The questions come harder, faster. They do not let him rest inside half-truths anymore. He denies it, then minimizes it, then reframes it. He says it was an accident. He says she panicked. He says things got out of control. Every version shifts blame away from himself, because even now, even with the truth staring back at him, he cannot own it fully. But the cracks widen. The story changes too often. The timeline stumbles. Details contradict evidence recovered from the site. Investigators wait. Silence becomes the sharpest tool in the room. They let him hear his own breathing. Let him feel the distance between his words and reality. They remind him, gently, relentlessly, that this is no longer a missing person case. This is a homicide. And the earth has already testified. Finally, something breaks. Not with tears. Not with rage. With exhaustion. He leans forward, elbows on knees, voice lower now, stripped of performance. He talks about watching her. About learning her routine. About convincing himself it wasn't wrong because she never knew. He talks about the night everything shifted, about proximity turning into obsession, about control slipping through his fingers the moment she resisted. He admits to taking her. He admits to the site. He admits to leaving her there. But even now, he chooses his words carefully. He never says murder. He never says intention. He frames it as inevitability, as if the outcome was something that simply happened around him, not something he caused. The confession is partial, but it is enough. Prosecutors move quickly. Charges are filed. Arrest papers signed. The headline that will soon shock the community already exists in draft form, waiting. A cold case reopened. A body found. A suspect in custody. 30 years of silence finally ruptured. When the news breaks, Washington reacts the way it always does to delayed tragedy, with disbelief first, then anger, then a hollow kind of relief. People remember where they were when she disappeared. They remember the fear, the rumors, the way the story faded without resolution. Now it returns heavier, darker, carrying proof. Her family is notified privately. There are no cameras, no microphones, just a room, quiet and unbearable, where decades of hope collapse into confirmation. Grief does not arrive loud. It arrives like gravity, pressing down, making even breath feel like work. They have answers now. But answers do not bring her back. The trial looms ahead, but the outcome already feels inevitable. Evidence stacks high. DNA, confession, location. The defense will argue nuance. Prosecutors will argue truth. The public will watch, hungry and horrified, as details spill out in measured doses. Yet, even as the system moves forward, the community feels something unresolved. A tension that does not dissipate with handcuffs and charges. Because this case is not just about what happened to one woman. It is about time. About how easily someone can hide in plain sight. About how patience can be weaponized. About how the absence of answers can stretch across decades, shaping lives quietly, invisibly. The man sits alone now, no longer anonymous, no longer protected by obscurity. The confidence that once carried him through years of freedom has evaporated. What remains is a long wait in a small room, with nothing left to hide behind. And outside, the city listens again. Listening to a story it thought was over. Listening to the echo of a silence that lasted 30 years. Listening as a cold case finally speaks. But the story is not finished yet. Because closure is not a moment. It is a reckoning. And that reckoning is coming. The courtroom feels smaller than it should. Wooden benches polished by decades of restless hands. Fluorescent lights humming softly overhead. Every seat filled, every aisle crowded with bodies leaning forward, waiting. Cameras are barred from the room, but the tension still feels broadcast, as if the air itself knows it is being watched. The man is led in quietly. No dramatic entrance. No outburst. Just the shuffle of restraints and the low murmur of a crowd seeing him clearly for the first time. He does not look like a monster. He looks ordinary. That is what unsettles everyone the most. The judge takes the bench. The gavel falls. And with that sound, 30 years collapse into a single moment. Prosecutors speak first, their voices measured, deliberate. They do not rush. They lay out the story slowly, piece by piece, because this case demands patience. They talk about Washington in 1990, about routines, about a woman who lived carefully, predictably, safely, about a man who watched, learned, waited. They present the timeline again, but now it no longer fractures. Every gap is filled, every question anchored. The phone call, the DNA, the land, the remains. Each element that once floated unconnected now locks into place with mechanical certainty. The defense listens stone-faced. When their turn comes, they do what defense attorneys always do in cases like this. They soften. They complicate. They suggest alternatives without offering new ones. They argue memory decay, evidence contamination, confession fatigue. They never deny she is dead. They never deny he was there. They only argue intention. Accident. Panic. A moment that spiraled. The words hang in the air, fragile and unconvincing. Witnesses take the stand. Forensic experts explain how time alters bone, how soil preserves secrets, how DNA does not lie even when people do. Detectives recount interviews conducted decades apart, describing how the suspect's story bent and shifted under pressure. Each testimony adds weight, pressing down harder on the room. Then her family speaks. They do not shout. They do not accuse. They talk about birthdays missed. About holidays spent staring at an empty chair. About the cruelty of not knowing whether to grieve or hope. Their voices crack not with anger, but with exhaustion, and the courtroom absorbs it in silence. The man does not look at them. When the confession is played, recorded and stripped of emotion, it feels colder than expected. There is no dramatic admission, no cinematic breakdown. Just a man explaining how control slipped, how things went wrong, how he made choices that erased another life, and then carried on as if nothing had happened. Jurors watch him carefully. They watch his posture, his tone, the way he distances himself from his own actions. They see what detectives saw decades earlier and could not prove. Deliberation does not take long. When the verdict is read, it lands without spectacle. Guilty. The word echoes, final and heavy. There is no gasp, no applause. Just a quiet exhale from a room that has been holding its breath for 30 years. Sentencing follows weeks later. The judge speaks about accountability, about time not diminishing responsibility, about how patience does not equal mercy. The sentence is long enough to ensure he will never walk free again. The man listens, expression unreadable, as if the future no longer exists in a way that matters. Outside, the city reacts. News vans line the street. Headlines flash across screens. A cold case solved. Justice after decades. The words sound triumphant, but the tone is subdued. There is relief, yes, but it is tempered by the knowledge of what cannot be undone. People revisit their memories. They remember the posters. The fear. The way the story faded without resolution. Now it returns, resolved on paper, but unresolved in feeling. Closure, it turns out, is not a clean line. The house where she lived becomes a point of quiet pilgrimage. Not officially. Not announced. Just people slowing down as they pass, glancing at the windows, imagining the last ordinary moments before everything stopped. Flowers appear on the sidewalk, then notes, then disappear again, carried off by wind and time. Her name enters history differently now. No longer missing, no longer unknown, but defined forever by the thing that ended her life. That, too, is a kind of injustice. Inside the prison, the man settles into routine. Numbers replace dates. Walls replace horizons. The confidence that once defined him dissolves into anonymity. He is no longer invisible because he is hidden. He is invisible because no one cares who he is anymore. And still, something lingers. Detectives who worked the case find themselves returning to it in their thoughts, even after the verdict. They replay moments. Wonder what might have changed if technology had arrived sooner, if a single detail had been taken seriously earlier, if someone had trusted their unease. Cold cases do that. They solve on paper, but echo in the mind. Because justice delayed is never simple. It arrives carrying years of absence, years of unanswered questions, years of lives shaped by silence. It does not erase those years. It only acknowledges them. And in Washington, long after the cameras leave and the courtroom empties, the story continues to breathe quietly beneath the surface. A solved case. A closed file. An open scar. The city does not celebrate. It exhales. After the verdict, life resumes in ways that feel almost disrespectful. Traffic returns to its familiar rhythm. Cafes refill. Laughter drifts out of open doors again. And yet, something has shifted beneath the surface, subtle but permanent, like a fault line that finally revealed itself. People begin to talk. Not in crowds. Not loudly. In kitchens. In parked cars. In offices after hours. They talk about where they were in 1990. About the first time they heard her name. About how long it took for fear to fade. They realize, with quiet discomfort, how easily they moved on. The case becomes a mirror. It reflects how a community absorbs tragedy, then smooths it over with time. How danger can hide inside routine. How monsters rarely look like monsters. Parents look at their children differently now. Joggers change their routes. Small habits shift, decades late, but instinctively. For the detectives, there is no clean ending. Some have retired. Some have passed away. Some sit at home watching the news, recognizing details no one else would notice. They feel vindication mixed with regret. Pride tangled with guilt. They know they did everything they could with what they had. They also know what they missed. The coworker who mentioned feeling watched hears the verdict and breaks down alone in her living room. She replays that conversation endlessly, wondering if she should have pushed harder, said more, insisted. The weight of hindsight presses down, unfair and relentless. The quiet man once suspected, once circled, once doubted, watches the story unfold with complicated relief. He was never guilty, but he was never free of suspicion either. Now he is released, belatedly, from a shadow that followed him for decades. Her family begins the slow work of redefining grief. For 30 years, they lived inside uncertainty. Hope and despair existed side by side, neither strong enough to win. Now hope is gone, replaced by finality. It hurts differently. Sharper in some ways. Softer in others. They have a place to visit now. A grave. A name carved in stone instead of floating in air. They hold a private memorial. No press. No speeches. Just stories shared quietly, laughter mixing with tears, memories reclaimed from the narrative of violence that consumed them. For a few hours, she is not a victim or a headline. She is herself again. But the case leaves residue. True crime podcasts dissect it. Articles revisit old theories. Comment sections fill with arguments and speculation, even now, even after conviction. Some people still question. Still doubt. Still demand a version of truth that fits their comfort better. Cold cases invite that. Because when time stretches long enough, certainty begins to feel optional. Law enforcement uses the case as training. New recruits study it. They learn about patience, about preservation, about the value of what seems insignificant at the time. A fiber, a note, of feeling someone laughed off. They learn that technology changes, but behavior doesn't. The lesson is sobering, because this case was not solved by brilliance in 1990. It was solved by endurance, by evidence waiting for the world to catch up, by a system that, imperfect as it is, kept a box on a shelf and refused to throw it away. And still, questions remain. Not about who did it, not about how, but about why it took so long. Why no one noticed the man watching. Why unease was dismissed as imagination. Why silence was allowed to stretch into decades. These are not questions a verdict can answer. As time moves forward, the case slowly shifts again, from breaking news to cautionary tale. Its edges soften. Its details blur. Another generation grows up knowing it only as a solved mystery from the past, not as a living fear. Yet the impact remains. Some nights, people still drive past that patch of land where she was found and feel a chill they cannot explain. Some officers still pause when they see a missing person poster, no matter how new or ordinary the face appears. Some families still hold their loved ones a little closer, because now they know how long waiting can last. The file is closed, but the story lingers. It lingers in the way people trust less easily, in the way routines feel fragile, in the understanding that evil does not announce itself. And somewhere, in the quiet spaces between headlines and memories, the case becomes what it always was destined to be. A warning. A reminder. A shadow cast by a single night in Washington, 1990. Time moves forward, but it does not move evenly. Some days feel light, almost ordinary again. Others carry weight without warning, bending the hours into something heavier, slower, harder to breathe through. The case is closed, yes, but closure is not an ending. It is a shift in how the story lives. In Washington, the places remain. The street where she lived still curves the same way. The sidewalks still crack under winter rain. People pass without knowing what once unfolded there, without sensing the invisible boundary between before and after. History does not announce itself. It waits to be remembered. For those who remember, the memory changes shape. At first, the case replayed loudly, violently, filling every thought. Now it arrives quietly in fragments. A news clip replayed late at night. A familiar name heard in passing. A photograph glimpsed too quickly to avoid. The mind stitches these moments together whether invited or not. Detectives describe it as unfinished motion. They solved the case, but the case did not release them. It visits during mundane moments. While driving. While washing dishes. While staring at nothing in particular. They think about alternate paths, about the way lives hinge on small decisions. One overlooked comment. One unasked question. One instinct dismissed. They know this is dangerous thinking. They do it anyway. The land where she was found is quiet again. Grass grows. Animals return. The scar fades from view. Nature does not remember what humans do. It absorbs. It erases. It moves on without ceremony. But those who stood there when the truth surfaced will never see it as just land again. It is a place where time gave something back. The man responsible fades from public consciousness faster than expected. After the trial, his name is rarely spoken. He becomes a footnote, a line in a database, a cautionary example. This, too, feels wrong to some. He occupied so much space for so long. Now he is gone, reduced to confinement and routine. But forgetting him is not forgiveness. It is containment. Her name, on the other hand, resurfaces differently now. Not as a mystery, but as a memory reclaimed. Friends tell stories that have nothing to do with how she died. How she laughed unexpectedly. How she hated certain foods. How she planned things meticulously, then abandoned them on impulse. These details matter more now than they ever did before. They are proof she lived. The family navigates a strange new terrain. Sympathy shifts. Conversations change tone. People assume relief where there is only adjustment. They are no longer waiting, but they are not free either. Grief, once suspended, now has gravity. They speak of her in the present sometimes, by accident. Then pause. Then continue anyway. Community groups organize discussions about safety, about awareness, about trusting instincts. The case is cited often, not sensationally, but seriously. A reminder that danger is not always loud. That watching can look like coincidence. That patience can be predatory. Younger listeners hear the story differently. For them, it is history. Something that happened before they were born, wrapped in outdated technology and unfamiliar routines. They cannot fully grasp the slowness of investigation before digital trails, the vulnerability of a world without constant surveillance. Older listeners understand too well. They remember the waiting. They remember the silence. True crime interest eventually wanes, replaced by newer cases, fresher mysteries. Algorithms move on. But this story resists complete disappearance. It lingers because of its length, because of its patience, because of how close it stayed to normal life. This was not chaos. This was quiet. And quiet is harder to forget. In moments of reflection, some detectives admit something uncomfortable. If the case had never been solved, they would have carried it anyway. The truth did not free them. It only changed the weight they carried. Instead of uncertainty, there is certainty. Instead of wondering, there is knowing. Knowing can be heavier, because now there is no room for hope to soften the edges. The city learns to live with that. Years from now, someone will stumble across the story for the first time. They will read about Washington in 1990, about a woman who vanished, about decades of silence, about bones emerging from the ground like a message delayed too long. They will feel shock, then fascination, then distance. But for those who lived it, distance never fully arrives. The case has a gravity that bends memory inward. It reminds everyone that time does not protect the innocent, that routine does not guarantee safety, that disappearance is not an abstraction until it is personal. And even now, long after the verdict, long after the headlines faded, the silence that opened this story still echoes faintly. Not as fear, not as mystery, but as a reminder. Some truths wait patiently. Some stories refuse to end. Some nights, no matter how many years pass, never fully let go. Years fold over themselves like pages in a book that no one wants to finish. Washington moves forward, but the memory of one night in 1990 lingers like smoke, thin but stubborn. New neighborhoods arise where old streets once wound. Offices replace row houses, and trees grow taller than they did when she disappeared. The city forgets, in part, but it does not forgive. Some stories refuse simplicity. The family carries her absence differently now. They speak less of fear, more of absence, of the way life continued in pieces without her presence to anchor it. Birthdays pass. Holidays arrive. Yet each anniversary stretches the space between what was and what could have been. A grave provides a place to visit. A stone carries a name. But stones do not soften grief. They do not return laughter. They do not restore the ordinary life stolen in one night of intent. Detectives, too, age. Some retire. Some leave the force quietly. Some carry the case like a scar under the skin, always tender, invisible until touched. They share stories cautiously, recounting not the facts alone, but the sensation of waiting, the knowledge that time can be both ally and enemy. Each new recruit listens, fascinated and horrified, learning that justice is measured not in immediacy, but in endurance. For the city, the story transforms. It becomes legend, cautionary, and subdued. Residents speak of her with the distance of history, a young woman who vanished, decades later finally found, and whose killer is locked behind concrete and metal. Newspapers file the headlines under solved cases. True crime enthusiasts revisit old tapes, old reports, old theories, now anchored in resolution. Social media repeats the story in cycles of outrage and fascination. People comment, debate, and scroll past. Memory dilutes itself through technology and distance. And yet, for those who were there, the emotional resonance never fades. Some nights, the wind carries a chill that feels wrong along the streets she once walked. Some mornings, a neighbor pauses too long, seeing a shadow that should not exist. The lessons of vigilance, of attention to detail, of trusting instinct remain. The quiet of 1990, the ordinary calm she disrupted, still hums faintly in these moments, a reminder that nothing is as safe as it seems. The case becomes part of the collective understanding of the city. It exists in whispered conversations between neighbors, in police briefings for decades-old missing persons, in educational programs about investigation, in the lingering unease when someone realizes how long someone can hide in plain sight. Her story serves as both example and warning, teaching that patience can be criminal, that observation can be predatory, that silence can last decades before the truth emerges. For the man, time becomes a different kind of sentence. The courtroom gave him decades of confinement, but the memory of being found, exposed, and dissected in court carries its own weight. Within the walls of the prison, he occupies space, but no longer possesses power. The ordinary world he tried to escape shapes him, yet he remains a part, a reminder that human cruelty can extend far beyond the moment it is committed. Meanwhile, her presence continues in the lives she touched. Friends recall small habits, stories, conversations that suddenly feel monumental. Her laughter, once mundane, becomes precious in memory. Ordinary details, what she wore, how she arranged her desk, the songs she hummed, are elevated to significance. Memory preserves her, though absence defines it. The city, in turn, never fully relaxes. Missing persons cases are approached with greater urgency. Patterns are scrutinized more carefully. Subtle signs are examined rather than dismissed. The police refine methods, adopt new technologies, implement lessons painfully learned from a story that spanned decades. Washington becomes, in small ways, a safer place. The cost, however, is not invisible. Fear lingers in corners, in quiet streets, in the hearts of those who remember. Even when the press no longer reports it, even when new headlines overshadow the story, the shadow persists. Cold cases are cataloged, files stacked, names indexed, histories archived. Yet those who live the investigation know that some stories, once begun, never truly end. They echo through time, shaping thought, expectation, instinct. They leave marks invisible but palpable. The cold case is closed, the killer convicted, the remains returned, but the resonance remains. Human lives have been altered irreversibly. Time both heals and preserves. Closure exists only in legal terms, in documents, in the weight of verdicts. Emotional resolution is another measure entirely, measured by patience, endurance, and memory. She exists now in both. In life remembered. In life stolen. In the quiet that once went unnoticed and the revelation that finally broke through decades of silence. And as decades continue, new generations walk those same streets. They jog along the paths she once traveled, never knowing the story. Yet the city retains the memory and structure, in shadow, in vigilance. Every brick, every streetlight, every subtle irregularity carries a trace of what happened. The city itself, unknowingly, becomes a memorial, and in that memorial, she remains present, always observed, never forgotten. Decades have passed, yet the echo of that night still hums through Washington. The city has changed. Buildings have risen, streets rerouted, trees taller than memory allows. New lives are being lived above the very ground that once held her, and yet the past refuses to lie quietly beneath the surface. Shadows linger where sunlight stretches longest, and the hum of ordinary life carries a subtle tension beneath its rhythm. For those who lived it, the case never truly ended. Detectives who retired years ago revisit old notes late at night, tracing the flow of events with trembling fingers. Memories intertwine with what they read in modern reports, and the feeling returns, the sensation of being watched, of time stretching thin, of questions pressing from all sides. They recall the small details ignored in haste, a grocery receipt, a shadow by the alley, the whisper of a passing car. The ordinary now feels loaded. Every detail has weight. Her family walks through their grief differently now. Relief is tempered by years of absence, by decades of silence, by the knowledge that she might have lived longer if time had bent differently. They speak of her carefully, as if uttering her name too loudly might undo the fragile closure they've grasped. The truth is absolute, but the emotional landscape is jagged. Joy and sorrow coexist in the same moment. Happiness arrives, hesitant, trailing the memory of lost years. Their mourning is no longer suspended, it is permanent, layered, complex. Public memory shifts as well. The case becomes legend, a textbook example, a whispered warning. True crime enthusiasts dissect the files, podcasts recount events with dramatic tension, social media resurrects discussion in cycles. Most people know the bare facts. She vanished, she was found, her killer convicted. But few grasp the rhythm of waiting, the decades of unanswered questions, the subtle terror of a life watched and silenced. In courtrooms and classrooms, the story is retold. Young detectives and students study it as a cautionary tale about observation, patience, and cruelty. They learn that time does not erase intention, that small acts may culminate in violence, that technology can vindicate long-forgotten evidence. The procedural victory is clear. The lesson is unforgettable. Yet, closure is incomplete. Because human memory does not adhere to legal verdicts. It stores emotion, nuance, hesitation. It preserves anxiety, instinct, and unease. Those who witnessed her disappearance, those who investigated, those who loved her, they carry fragments that never reconcile neatly. They replay the night in fragments. They imagine alternate outcomes. They are haunted not by mystery, but by what certainty now reveals. And Washington itself remembers. Neighborhoods seem quieter at night, streets appear longer, and alleys seem to stretch further than logic allows. Parents teach vigilance to children, strangers glance longer at the people they pass, and joggers double-check the familiar routes that once seemed safe. The lessons of patience, predation, and observation are encoded into collective behavior, subtle yet persistent. The city lives as though it carries a scar beneath its surface. The man convicted occupies his confined space now, stripped of the anonymity that allowed him to survive for decades. Control, once exercised with cold precision, has been stripped away. He is subject to a timetable, rules, scrutiny, observation, the same invisibility reversed. His life is regulated, predictable, constrained. The consequences are absolute. And yet, the true horror of his actions, the way he intruded into life, the patient destruction, the quiet domination, cannot be fully measured by bars or sentences. Those who investigate cases like this often speak in whispers. They warn each other that the past has a persistence all its own, that some echoes cannot be silenced, that some fears become permanent fixtures of memory. They carry the knowledge that what is solved in court is only partially solved in life, and that the human psyche is as vulnerable to observation, obsession, and patience as any physical evidence is to decay. And so the story persists. Her life, once ordinary, becomes monumental in absence. Every smile recalled, every mundane habit remembered, becomes a testament to her existence. Every measure of time since that night, 30 years, decades, presses against those memories, amplifying them, twisting them, rendering them simultaneously fragile and indelible. Her absence is pervasive, yet her presence survives through memory, narrative, and the enduring vigilance of a city that refuses to forget. In quiet moments, even the most ordinary passerby senses the resonance. A shadow too long, a noise too distinct, a wind that whispers in alleys that have known fear before. The city itself vibrates with the knowledge of what patience, observation, and cruelty can do when left unchecked. The cold case, once an abstract fear, has become an imprint on the collective consciousness. It teaches vigilance. It inspires caution. It haunts quietly. And after all these years, after all the verdicts and evidence, after closure has been documented and headlines have faded, one truth remains: some stories, even when legally concluded, refuse to rest. They persist in memory, in instinct, in shadow. They linger in ways that are quiet, invisible, and inescapable. Because evil, once patient enough to endure decades, never truly disappears. It leaves marks where light cannot fully reach. It waits inside the ordinary, knowing that ordinary itself is fragile. It ensures that even solved mysteries carry resonance far beyond the courtroom. Even after the verdict, after the trial, after the last photograph is archived and the last note filed, the city exhales unevenly. Windows close, doors shut, and traffic hums through familiar streets. The ordinary continues, but beneath it all, a residual tension hums, like a cord held too long, vibrating just beyond perception. For those who lived it, the case never truly ends. Detectives recall that one night, that one missing piece, the faint shadow in a neighbor's yard, the almost imperceptible clue no one noticed until decades later. Memory and intuition entwine. The truth has been revealed, the killer caught, but the sensation of being watched, of small moments of danger, does not vanish. It returns quietly in moments of reflection, in the silence of a night drive, in the unspoken awareness that life is fragile and deliberate acts of violence can hide in plain sight. Her family carries the weight of absence and knowledge simultaneously. Relief arrives too late to soothe old fear. Closure cannot heal the years lost, the birthdays missed, the holidays spent staring at empty spaces. They speak of her sometimes in the present tense, reclaiming fragments of her personality that survived only in memory. Every laugh remembered, every story shared, every minute detail of ordinary life now becomes monumental. She is gone, and yet she persists. The city itself remembers. Neighborhoods shift, streets grow longer in perception, alleys seem narrower yet ominous. Parents teach vigilance more urgently. Joggers change routines subconsciously. People pause at familiar intersections, subconsciously scanning for patterns of behavior that may indicate hidden danger. The collective awareness carries an imprint of that night in 1990, a caution etched into the urban memory of Washington. It is invisible yet palpable. And the man who was convicted, the one who watched, who waited, who acted, occupies a space that once allowed him freedom. Control has been stripped. Time now dictates every movement. Authority measures his hours. Routine confines him. His patience, which once enabled a crime to unfold over decades, is now inverted. He has become a monument to containment. And yet, even in confinement, the residue of the crime remains. He cannot erase the mark his actions left on the lives of others. The fear, the loss, the psychological imprint, it cannot be imprisoned. Detectives and investigators, those who finally solved what seemed unsolvable, live with a quiet echo. They replay events in their minds. They revisit files. They think about moments dismissed, choices not made, instincts unheeded. They feel the tension of what could have happened, what almost went unseen, what lingered unobserved for 30 years. They know, intimately, that patience in crime can outlast the human lifespan, that silence can be weaponized, that truth, when delayed, carries its own weight. The city adapts slowly. News cycles move on. True crime enthusiasts and social media digest the story in bite-sized narratives. Public attention fades. But the psychological imprint persists. Fear persists. Vigilance persists. Memory persists. A solved case is not the same as a resolved one. Even decades later, someone walking past the patch of land where she was discovered may feel it. A chill. A pause. A subtle shift in awareness. A reminder that patience and predation are not constrained by time, that quiet violence leaves echoes long after action ceases. Ordinary life carries it in small details, footsteps too quiet, cars that appear too often, shadows that seem to linger. And in the quiet spaces of human thought, the story refuses to end. It lingers in memory, in instinct, in the subtle tightening of vigilance. It teaches, warns, haunts. The absence of life, the presence of control, the slow unraveling of decades-long silence, these have become permanent elements of the city's psyche. Some nights, even now, the city feels different. The air seems heavier. The streets seem longer. The ordinary carries tension that cannot be removed. Stories like hers do not fade completely. They embed themselves invisibly, shaping perception, behavior, and understanding. Justice has been served in legal terms, but in emotional and psychological terms, the story continues to resonate, to instruct, to unsettle. A cold case solved. A file closed. A killer imprisoned. Yet, Washington carries the mark of that night in 1990, layered invisibly over every corner, every shadow, every street. Memory persists. Vigilance persists. The story, once dormant, now breathes quietly beneath the city's hum, a permanent testament to the fragility of life and the enduring weight of patience, observation, and human cruelty. The city moves on. But some nights, the past never leaves. It whispers. It waits. It reminds. The cold case is closed. The mystery has an ending. But its echo, its shadow, its presence remains. Years stretch into decades. Washington changes, but memory persists. Buildings rise over the streets she once walked. Parks are renamed, roads rerouted. People move in and out. Life continues. Yet beneath it all, the echo of that night in 1990 hums quietly, invisible but undeniable. Her family grows older. They experience milestones, births, deaths, celebrations, but a shadow follows every joy. The absence she left is no longer immediate, no longer raw in daily awareness, but it never fully disappears. They speak of her in fragments, sometimes laughing, sometimes sobbing in the same breath. Ordinary moments are punctuated by memory, a song she loved, a pattern of laughter, the way sunlight fell through her window. Every detail, once mundane, now monumental. Detectives and investigators, even long retired, carry an invisible ledger in their minds. Nights are quieter, but recollection is sharper. They think about the tiny decisions, the clues ignored, the instinctive unease that went unheeded. They know the case was solved, the killer imprisoned, yet the weight of patience, observation, and decades-long silence remains. Some admit they replay the night in fragments, even after the legal closure. They feel the tension of what might have been, the subtle terror that ordinary life once hid. The city itself absorbs it silently. Neighborhoods never fully forget. Streets and alleys retain the faint imprint of attention and caution. Parents warn children with a diligence born from memory, not from headlines. Joggers unconsciously alter routes. Windows reflect vigilance. Ordinary life bears an undertone of awareness, subtle, persistent, and invisible. The city carries its scar quietly, shaping behavior without spectacle. True crime enthusiasts revisit the story in cycles. Podcasts retell the timeline, newspapers recall the headlines, social media resurrects fascination. But for those who lived it, the story is more than evidence and verdicts. It is a psychological footprint, a permanent imprint on the human experience of a community. Her life and the patient cruelty that ended it continues to instruct, warn, and haunt. The convicted man remains confined. Time now dictates him entirely. His freedom, once unearned, has been replaced with routine and observation. Authority measures every movement. Control is stripped away. Yet the emotional, psychological, and societal consequences of his acts cannot be imprisoned. They ripple outward endlessly, affecting memory, instinct, and perception in ways no bars can contain. Years later, someone walking past the land where she was found may feel a chill, may pause for no reason, may glance toward a shadow that isn't there. Ordinary streets carry a memory of observation, of patience, of danger lurking quietly in plain sight. And even for those who never knew her, the city teaches caution. Life, it whispers, is fragile. Evil can wait. Silence can endure. Truth, when finally revealed, leaves a mark that lasts far longer than the crime itself. Her name remains alive in memory, now untethered from disappearance. She exists in recollection, in the stories told by those who loved her, in lessons learned and taught, in vigilance sustained. She lives quietly in the gaps between ordinary life and shadow, a presence defined by absence, a narrative that refuses to end. The cold case is closed. The killer is imprisoned. The headlines have faded. Yet the echo persists. The shadow lingers. The story waits patiently in the city, in memory and instinct. And for those who listen carefully, the past is never truly gone. Some nights, the city remembers. Some nights, the wind carries the story, faint but undeniable. And some nights, in quiet reflection, the world feels just a little colder, just a little heavier, and just a little more aware that patience, observation, and silence can endure far beyond the moment of action. The story ends. The echo does not.